Some breaking news out of Turkey, and Istanbul's prosecutor has announced that it has prepared an indictment, that's a formal charge, against suspects involved in the killing of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. For more on this, let's bring in our editor-at-large, Yusuf Erim. Yusuf, give us more details about what's in the indictment.
Well, I had a chance to review the indictment, and it's charging 20 suspects as defendants. And out of these 20 suspects, 2 masterminds being charged with planning the premeditated murder with monstrous intent, as the indictment specifically says. A key MBS advisor, Saud al-Qahtani, and former deputy head of Saudi intelligence, Ahmed al-Asiri. Now, both of these men were in the spotlight since this Khashoggi murder happened back in October 2nd, 2018. So it's been a year and a half since the Istanbul prosecutor and Turkish security services have been thoroughly investigating this case. And at the end of this investigation, the chief prosecutor feels very confident that these 18 suspects plus these 2 masterminds planned and carried out what he's calling a premeditated murder. Now, the big question was, were any of the royals going to be named in the indictment? Was MBS going to be named in the indictment? Well, we're seeing that the royals have not been named in the indictment. MBS is left out. The chief prosecutor feels that these 20 people are fully responsible for this murder, with the 2, Asiri and Qahtani, being named the masterminds.
And you mentioned there, among those 20 suspects as defendants, including names as Saud al-Qahtani and Ahmed al-Asiri as being masterminds behind the murder of Jamal Khashoggi. Tell us more about these 2 and how significant are they in this?
They're very significant because when we look at this operation, and I'm calling it an operation, it's basically an intelligence operation. It's an extrajudicial assassination carried out by the state. And these 2 men show that link between the operation team, these 18 henchmen, these foot soldiers that actually carried out the day-to-day, the dirty work, and Riyadh. They're the connection. Because you have one, Saud al-Qahtani, he's a key MBS advisor, a man that's very important in Saudi Arabia's communications, his social media presence, very, very trusted advisor to the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And then you also have Ahmed al-Asiri, the former deputy head of Saudi Arabia's intelligence agency. So we're seeing this link between the Saudi state and these 18 men who were on the ground carrying out this assassination. And these 2 men are that link that creates many question marks in people's minds as to how far and how high up this assassination went and who made the call. But it seems like the Istanbul chief prosecutor is very intent on at least charging these 20 people. This indictment has been handed out after a rigorous and thorough investigation. There was also examining the events that happened inside Saudi Arabia with that criminal investigation going on. Their extradition has been requested from Saudi Arabia, and also a red bulletin request from Interpol as well. So if Turkey can ever get its hands on these 20 people, which seems highly unlikely, I highly doubt that Saudi Arabia would leave open such a liability as allowing Turkey to try these people, because that would obviously allow for a lot of transparency in this case, and that's something Saudi Arabia wants to stay away from. But if Turkey can ever get their hands on these people, they will be tried in a criminal court in Istanbul. And
Yusuf, the world right now is a very different world to what we imagined ever. You say if the Istanbul prosecutor can get their hands on these people, what happens next? How does that possibly happen, given the circumstances that we're living in today?
Well, it looks like a very highly unlikely scenario that Turkey will be able to get its hands on these people. Now, the Turkish Ministry of Justice have done their job up till now. They've investigated, they've handed down the indictment. Now it's up to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to get this diplomacy going to try to extradite these people. But as I said before, I highly doubt the Saudis are going to want to play ball on this, because if these men get their day in court, especially in Turkey, in Istanbul, the Turkish courts are going to be relentless in their pursuit of them. and most likely try him to the highest extent of the law. And this is an incredible liability for many people in Saudi Arabia who might not have been named in the indictment, but who might have played a very important role in the assassination of former Washington Post journalist Jamal Khashoggi.
And Yusuf, this is, of course, such an important story, an important case for Turkey. It happened here in Istanbul, outside the Saudi Consulate, October the 2nd, 2 years ago nearly. Why now? Why has this development happened now?
Well, one of the reasons why is it's taken some time. There was a lot of contamination of evidence. You have to realize that the Turkish security services were only allowed on the premises of the crime scene 2 weeks after it happened. So also the very fragile nature of the case being linked to the Saudi state. Turkey wanted to act very carefully. It didn't want this case to impact diplomatic relations between both countries.